these key objectives. So I think the key objective has to be, or one of my key questions is, what is the impact for teacher education on the increased use of mobiles and tablet technologies in classrooms across the particularly English schooling system, because that's where we're situated, but across the wider situation? And it's this knock-on effect. So if there is a change in practice in our classrooms, then what is the important change in practice for those who are preparing teachers to work in those classrooms? Particularly when those people who are preparing them are themselves almost certainly, given that 6-year period I talked about, not engaged and involved in the practice of using these devices in the place where they themselves are preparing teachers in order to use them. Was that complicated enough? Did you follow? Good, because I'm not sure I followed that one. So, I have to be honest and say I'm a researcher here who's very operating in situ. So I have a practitioner research head in the sense that this research will be taking place in this institution in which I work, working with colleagues with whom I work. And that obviously kicks up a number of ethical considerations and practical considerations side of that. In fact, at least 2 of the people who are currently sitting in this room either have been or will be interviewed at some point as part of this research. You may work out who you are at this point. So, I think because of that, it's important, as Braude comments, that we, I operate a conscious ethical neutrality and embrace that the work I do remains as objective and contributory as possible. And I guess that also underpins this question of practitioner research. It's my expectation that this research will both challenge and change and contribute to the work of the institution in which I'm working. So my core question at the moment is, what is the impact for teacher education of the increased use of mobiles and devices in classrooms? And that breaks down into 2 or 3 sub-questions. The first of these might be, what are the content skills that pre-service teachers need with respect to mobile and tablet technologies? What are the pedagogic skills that pre-service teachers need with respect to mobile and tablet technologies? And what are the challenges to existing models of learning and teaching that these devices throw up? Obviously works in progress. This is not a positivistic study. I'm not looking to measure or successfully measure anything, even though my background is more intuitively positivistic than perhaps others. Because of that, and not believe you can make the kind of causal links, to look at these barriers and to look at these ideas that challenge teacher education and the teacher educators, I'm going to use an interpretive methodological approach. As Mannion says, the world of human experience is what I'm going to root this in. And this is the human experience of my own institution and practitioners. Creswell talked about the participants' view of the situation. And again, using that interpretive methodology, it was very much a question of trying to understand, both in terms of the trainees, the pre-service trainees, and their tutors, what their own experiences are. And then trying to unpick and unpack that and offer some kind of triangulation around some questionnaire data, and some observational data, and some interview data, to try and pick out some key things. And as I am an interpretive researcher, it will be an inductive process. I'm not starting off with a theoretical perspective. I'm hoping to build a theoretical perspective as the research continues. My sample is of a number of pre-service, existing pre-service teachers and tutors working in this institution who have, some of this has already taken place, and some of these will take place. So what's the wonderful line from the hymn? It is and was and ever will be, in terms of my participant sample. The timescale, I say it's tentatively embarrassed. I'm not entirely sure this is allowed, so I may at this point say please close your ears, 1 or 2 of you. But some of the data has already been collected. So I've gone back a little bit and we'll go forward a little bit over the next timescale. However, I have kept this out ethically, and I'm allowed to use existing data sets. So I have some existing data sets that will be used, and I will gather more data over the next 12 months or so. The instruments I'm going to use is an interpretive qualitative piece of field work. So I'm going to use interpretive ethnographic, I guess, type instruments, although it's not really an ethnographic study. So I'll be using questionnaires, I'll be using interviews, and I'll be using some observational techniques. So, why do we need this? What's the purpose of doing this study? Why is the study needed now? Well, I'll go back to this quote from Dewey, which is ironic given, as it were, Dewey's own timescale. I believe quite strongly that the use of mobile and tablet technologies, which perhaps superbly are being used at this moment, to, for example, record me, are game changers in the educational landscape, in the pedagogical landscape. Education itself is very conservative, small c. Because of that, I think we are at a seismic point, what might be called a paradigm shift movement for education. However, those people who are operating this paradigm shift, those people in our classrooms, are being educated by people who are still sat on perhaps the wrong side of the chasm. So this hopefully will be a piece of research that will challenge, that will stimulate, and that will ask people to change, to jump the chasm. And as the Chinese proverb says, you cannot jump a chasm in 2 leaps. So it will be a seismic change. Questions?
Any questions?
Stunned silence.
What's the size of your sample? What is the size of your sample?
About 450 pre-service teachers over a course of a period of time that will be left indiscriminate at this point in time.
Sharon had the question.
Yeah, I was just wanting to know why you're only choosing this institution and maybe not sort of going further afield to find out if there's...
Because I've decided to adopt practitioner research methodology.
What does that mean?
How much of an answer do you want?
As good an answer as you think you can give it the time you've got. It's long, but
Okay, in a short
what do you
answer,
think it means?
I would argue it's a methodology where you're operating within the institution in which you can impact change or affect change.
So is it actual research?
Not necessarily.
Why?
Is it a case study?
Why isn't it a case study?
No, is it a case study?
No.
It's not. Why isn't it?
Because I'm not utilising any particular example. What I'm hoping to do from this is to come up with a general set of principles or a general set of ideas. So I'm not going to take, as I would understand a case study, I'm not going to take a particular example of a particular time and utilise that almost as a sort of encapsulation. It's something which I think is different to that.
Are
Yeah.
you
Any other
Maybe
questions? If you
misunderstanding
can
the
raise your
case study.
hands, because yes.
are you only using iPads as your main instrument of study?
Because it's situated in, because it is practitioner research, I'm using the devices that have been provided or will be provided to students in the institution, which are iPads.
Of
But
an,
there's no bias, that's not a, that's a as is rather than a because of.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a quick question? This is, I know you talked about coming at it with objectivity and neutrality. Do you think you might, how do you might think you might manage? You're very positive about technology.
Yeah.
You might be actually dealing
The answer is
with
can I be objective and neutral? No. And I hope I didn't say that. If I said that was wrongly said. What I hope I said was to be as objective
Yeah.
and as neutral as possible.
You might
So what I hope to be is honest about my objectivity and neutrality. Will I be objective and neutral? No.
Can we go to your, if there is nobody who has any questions, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Do you have a yes?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just builds on that problem a lot of people have is that it's not so much about the tablets, it's that you have to have a particular company's tablet. If you have this substitute for pen and paper argument, say you can only work with one person's type of paper.
Yes.
It would be absolute nonsense.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not making any claims about. I'm going to go back to that first slide, which is Steve Jobs once said is that it's not about the technology, it's about what people do with the technology. Okay, Steve Jobs had a particular vested interest in using certain sorts of technology, but I think it's a good example.
just before you ask, Ronnie, what do you hope to achieve with your research?
Revolution.
A revolution of what?
What I'd like to do, well, what I hope
Not
to
to
achieve.
not to get your doctorate.
Well, as well. If it was choice between the two, I'd go for the first rather than the second. Hopefully it's both.
Yeah, it's
What I'd hope to achieve is to come up with a set of principles which other people could take in their own situation. Actually, no, back to say two things. The first thing I hope to achieve is to convince other people that this is a revolution, this is a seismic shift. There is a change here, that these technologies actually will make a difference, but actually have to make a difference. And that we are, I say, at that paradigm shift point of understanding. And the second is I'd hope both of my own institution and hopefully I would offer that to other institutions to situate a set of principles by which they could operate this paradigm shift.
Thanks, because at the moment I wasn't sure, and it then says to me, you've still got some assumptions about difference.
Oh boy, I've got a lot of assumptions.
Okay.
You want to see my assumptions back? Sorry.
You've
Yes.
already asked a question. Is there anybody else who may have a question? Okay, in this case, then
You get a
yes.
second question.
Wow, bonus.
We have a sub question.
Why aren't you looking at schools using them?
Space and scope. To some extent, I will be looking at schools through the eyes of the pre-service teachers.
Okay.
But yes, the answer is what about going to school as well? If you've got a couple of £1 million, a dozen research assistants, and 5 years, yes, please, I'll have them, and I'll do that as well.
Okay, I'll ask a question. Could we go perhaps to your main research question, Paul? Could you repeat it? Because I'm a visual person. So
Okay.
if you could repeat it at least.
I can repeat it. I can't make
No,
it visual.
no, don't write.
That's
But
right.
if you could repeat it.
No, I can't make it visual. Anything is possible.
No, please, if you could repeat it.
I'll put it up there.
We have limited time, so.
Okay, so there. What is the impact of teacher education of the increased use of mobile and tablet devices in classrooms?
But more slowly, at least.
Oh, sorry, yes.
What is it there?
What is the impact? Oh, should be what is the impact? I've dropped into strange speak. What is the impact for teacher education of the increased use of mobile and tablet devices in classrooms?
Can I ask a question related
Yes.
to that? The way you framed your question would make it seems to me that you're looking for generalised principles, as you talk about teacher education in the global sense. You're not saying whole. It looks like you're looking for global principles that you'll be able to conclude from this and apply elsewhere. But your methodology, you said, was interpretive. That you're very interested in its interpretive
Yes.
approach. How will you get principles that could be applied elsewhere? In other words, generalised from an
I-
interpretive study.
Right, I would argue that interpretive methodological approaches allow you to start off with data. So you gather your data, and from that you can formulate an iterative process. You can formulate out what may be generalisable principles. Now, I come back to that, is I'm not looking for, it's not a positive. I would argue that if you're saying I will come up with generalised principles, you're looking for some kind of causal link that says there is some sort of causal approach that says these are generalisable. What I want to come up with as a statement, as I answered with Rowan's question, is that I'd like to say, here are a set of what I think are well thought through and well researched principles, which you as institution B could take and reinterpret into your own situation, which might provide a stimulus or a starting point for your own dialogue conversation. Not that I'm saying to somebody else, here are a set of principles, if you apply these, then this will happen for you.
Can I just make a point as well? Just in terms of the case study point, is it not a case study if you look at the work review and then talk about how you can use...
Batsy, we talked about fuzzy generalisations. It sounds like a case study.
I'd still disagree, but maybe that's a longer conversation. I don't think it's an either or. I think there are overlap situations inside what you might call case study approach or ethnographic approach. Or, I don't think this is a pure case study, although it has elements of case studiness.
But it's a key thing, isn't it? If you're going to try and demonstrate principles that are generalisable, the question's going to
I
be...
didn't say I was.
You did
I said principles
that.
principles that could be applied in other places. That's not semi-generalisable.
Well, it's very close, I think. It's moving certainly away from this is a located case study in one context, and you can't say anything else about it, but it's worth studying.
That's too dichotomous.
Yeah.
You're
But
making-
you're moving very much towards saying, I'm going to have a set of principles. You mentioned principles.
Yes, yes.
And I think you're going to get questions about how can you have any confidence and faith that is transferable? What is it that you've done in your data collection or the methods that you've used to have faith that these principles can be transferred?
That's a fair point, but I would argue that's a spectrum, not a dichotomy.
Can I ask a question?
That's not
Because
the
I
either or.
Oh, you can ask a question. Go
I
ahead.
didn't ask a question. I had a question about your question. What do you mean by impact?
I'm not choosing to answer that directly because at the moment I wouldn't want to define that as measurable. The answer is I'm not meaning that's why I said this nature of looking at the data and looking to sort through that. So I'm
So are you
not
going to have
applying.
a grounded theory approach?
No, I don't like grounded theory.
Because what you I think it's just give me a minute. I saw your
Your
hand.
next, James.
Yes. Unless you have a concept in my view in your research question, you will struggle. From where is the literature going to come from?
Okay.
Who has written on impact?
One, I'm not worried about struggle, so I'm not too worried about that.
It is
Secondly,
important because a thesis
I don't disagree.
is assessed
Yes, I don't-
against certain criteria, and unless you fulfill these criteria, you won't pass it. So we have to be pragmatic.
Yes, exactly.
Revolution is far more important in many ways, but you need to get your doctorate, and unless you have if your methodology is not grounded theory, in my view, and I'm against grounded theory, I don't believe in grounded theory, but unless you have a justification on that basis, you need to have a kind of conceptual approach or basis. So from where the literature will come from, if your word impact, which to me comes a lot from the policy side rather than the academic side, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to evaluate respondents?
Simple answer is yes. But again, I think I'd want to argue that you don't have to start off with an absolute idea in the interpretive paradigm. You can start off. I mean, I certainly have ideas of what
I didn't talk about
that
paradigms. I talked about concepts.
Yeah.
And
but I think I want to argue that the word impact doesn't have to be strictly defined at the beginning. I think what you can do is start to explore the participants' own views of this.
so then
To
people
then-
will say X, Y, Z with a tablet. So what?
That's prejudging. I would want to prejudge at this point. I would question your question.
I asked that question. You can't have this dialogue with an examiner, and if you say that I doubt your question, or I'm not asking and I'm replying to you with a question,
Oh,
it's
yes,
not
but
going to lead to anywhere.
I accept that, but we're a very different point here from the examination point as opposed to this
We
point.
try to be rigor in your research questions because this will make your life easier. Unless you have, not you, everybody, have firm research questions, you will be in trouble. It's your foundation. It's like constructing a building, and if the construction, you look for the decoration, but the foundation is not solid enough. And to me, that's your proposal, that's your research questions. It's not a good idea to change them halfway through or suddenly discover, oh, there is no literature to
No, I
analyze
didn't.
my data.
That's not what I said.
Anyway, something for
Yeah.
you. I'm not your
No.
supervisor, so yeah.
I think, sorry, because you've chosen to say impact singular. Is it perhaps better to ask what are the impacts?
Yes,
That
right.
way
Yeah.
you've then opened yourself to talk about it from different angles, because some people will perhaps assume you're meaning purely pedagogic, but there's also some people looking at the financial and policy side of things.
Can I?
And in the sub-questions I pulled out 3 particular dimensions, but thank you for that. Yeah, that's useful.
To me, revolution means change. Would that be correct? If you look at the dictionary definition,
Yeah.
so if you
Or to
replace,
spin around aimlessly.
Hmm?
Or to spin around aimlessly.
true. So when I read that question, what is the impact for teacher education of the increased use of mobile and tablet devices? And listening to what you said about your hope is that you will instigate a revolution. I read impact as being change.
Yes.
Is that where you are wanting to go with it?
Yes, certainly. That's certainly true. Thank you for that question.
So then you
Um,
need to define what change is, because impact, revolution, change are your key themes. But we don't know where you're going with regards to change,
No.
revolution, and impact. I think.
But again, I don't want to make predeterminate statements.
Paul, have you come across with the work of Gunter Grass? He's done a lot of work, and to me it makes sense. He says what it does to people, how they learn, and how they understand the world, and how they communicate. This makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But impact is not just.
I think it's a
And right,
fabulous.
Grass has done huge amount of work.
But Rania,
Multimodality, and to me he's the leading person on new technologies.
I know.
and-
Rania, can I say, based on yesterday's session with Kevin, I think there's relevance in the word impact because it's established that there has been a change and there has been an impact. But I think am I right in thinking it's defining the impact before you look at the question, what is the impact?
I have personally a problem with the word impact. It comes
Ah.
from policymakers, and it's like it is a behavioristic approach to individuals, as if you will do X, Y, Z, and students are the robots, and they will perform in X, Y, Z way.
Or maybe
and
effect
one-
then is the
that's
better
one
word, not
interpretation of
impact.
that, and I agree that needs to
Well,
be
I
explored and pulled out.
would accept that it's about about processes, because learning is a process, teaching is a process. I'm not an expert in this,
Yeah.
I like good
You mentioned,
yeah.
So it could be implications rather than impact. That's what Sharon you've just
I think
said.
it's true of all of them, if we generalise a bit, come away from Paul's, that is, the key thing, the key of the research question is specificity.
Yes.
Because you haven't got that much scope to do this,
Yes.
especially on an MD compared to a PhD. And you will get torn to bits if you leave open-ended words in there that you don't define. Because your examiner is almost looking for something to say.
Yes.
It's about rigor.
And
Rigor is not
So for all of you, I think it's the research question. I think is the hardest thing to get right. It's come up time and time again. You'll have to reformulate it. It won't be done the first time. But do look at these terms. The words we take for granted. We've had impact. We had others as well. You've really got to examine, scrutiny, and
Yes.
think, what do I really mean by
And
that?
and,
what will others mean
and
by
can you
that?
then take a can you use a dictionary to define your
Yeah,
word?
you
Because
can.
sometimes
Yeah.
the word isn't really what you. It's not what you're choosing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audience, so in many respects, so terms come from certain contexts, so
Yes.
they're not in.
They'll learn it out.
And I think
You
In
need
practice,
to
what's
look
it
at the
like?
origins of a concept, and concepts change meanings as well. For example, the word ideology, when it first appeared, it was about the study of ideas. Now, when you talk about ideology, it has negative connotations. So ideas change, or like quality in education, it sounds like a good idea, but if you look at policy documents and how teachers, academics, this has a concept